attacked the prisoner, and he got him into a headlock, and then he pressed the alarm, and they came, and they had accused him of assaulting the prison officer. That prison officer is racist. He said, "You didn't see me attack the officer, did you?" And I said, "No." So as soon as I said that, the governor, who up to that point had been writing in his book, he put his pen down and he looked at me. But they won't stand up for justice inside their own homes. So there's acts of oppression that are taking place inside their own homes.
أخي أنت حر وراء السدود أخي أنت حر بتلك القيود إذا كنت بالله مستعصما فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In 2006, I was held in Woodhill prison, a high security prison in Milton Keynes in the centre of England. I was held on a unit with approximately 80 other prisoners that were in prison awaiting trial or that had been convicted for a variety of crimes. One evening I witnessed an incident out of the flap of my cell window. So the cell door, the way it would happen is that on your cell door there'll be like a small slit window, and there'll be a flap which would either stay open or the officers would close it if they didn't want you to see what was happening. So I saw an incident where my cell was, just a few feet in front of me. There was an altercation, an incident that took place where there was a Muslim brother, a prisoner, and there was a prison officer, an English prison officer, and the two of them were squaring up to each other and having an argument. So the Muslim brother was very angry and he was very upset over something, and his face was just a few inches away from the face of the prison officer, and he was shouting at him, and he was just the brother was just really angry at the officer. And so I was watching this happen, and then all of a sudden, while this standoff, this argument is taking place, the officer then attacked the prisoner, and he got him into a headlock, and then he pressed the alarm, and they came and they took the Muslim brother, they put him under restraint, and they took him into the segregation unit. Now, a few days later, 2 or 3, I think maybe 2 days after that incident, I met that Muslim brother at Jummah prayers, and I found that quite odd, and I asked him what happened. Because what had happened is that they had accused him of assaulting the prison officer. Now, that obviously didn't happen because I saw that. So in return, he had made a counter claim against that prison officer, that prison officer is racist. So he was going to have a trial in the segregation unit. It's like a mini trial which takes place in front of a governor, and you have witnesses. So I mentioned to him that I saw the incident, and I saw that he said to me, "You didn't see me attack the officer, did you?" And I said, "No." I said, "Of course not." I said, "You were arguing with him, you were very close to him, but you did not swing at him." So the brother told me that the officer accused me of swinging at him, and that's why they restrained me. So he asked me that, would you be willing to come and testify at my hearing to say that I did not attack the officer? And I said, of course. So a couple of days after that, I went there. I went to the segregation unit, and inside the adjudication room, it's like a small room, and one of the governors was sitting there on a table. He was like the judge and the adjudicator. There were some other prison officers there, and there was me. There was the prison officer who had been involved in the incident, and that Muslim brother was there as well. So when it came to my turn, I began to describe what happened, where I was, what happened, what I saw. The governor asked me, he said, "Did you see inmate so-and-so? Did you see him attack or swing a punch at the officer?" And I said, "No, I did not see that." And so I gave my testimony, and the governor, he took notes. And then after that, I said to the governor, I said, there's one more thing that I wish to say. I said, I know this officer, I know him for 2 years, and I understand that there have been allegations of racism made against him. I just wanted to say that he is a good officer. In my opinion, he is no way, shape or form a racist, and I do not support any allegations that he is a racist. So as soon as I said that, the governor, who up to that point had been writing in his book, he put his pen down and he looked at me. He said, sorry, could you just repeat what you just said? And then I repeated. I said, I know this officer for 2 years. He is a good officer, and I do not support any allegations that he is a racist. And the governor then looked at me and he said, thank you for that. So he wrote down whatever I had said, and then that was it. So my bit was done, and then I went off and I went back to my unit. A few days later, I saw that Muslim brother at Friday prayers, because he had been moved to a different unit, and I asked him what happened, and he was really happy, and he said, I won the case, that nothing happened to me, there's no punishment, and nothing happened to me. And I said to him, I said, you know why I had to say that thing about him not being a racist? I said, I had to be honest in my testimony. He said, no. He said, I understand, brother. He was really happy, and he came and he thanked me for what happened. And there's a verse in the Quran in Surah Nisa, verse 135, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما, and until the end of the verse. Allah says, O you who believe, stand up firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it be against your own selves, or against your parents, or against your close relatives. Whether it is a rich person or a poor person, then Allah is more worthy of them. And then the verse continues to the end. There are 3 lessons that I took from this incident. The first one is the importance of being honest, even when you are in a hostile situation, or even against your so-called enemy. Because what that honesty does is that it gives you integrity and it gives you credibility. So the way it works in prison, so prison, there's a rule that prisoners have to stick together with prisoners, and prison officers stick together with prison officers. It's like there's like 2 sides. There's no doubt about that. But then you have some prison officers that are exceptionally good human beings, and then you have some prisoners who are snakes and rats and informants. So by me making it clear, what the governor would have expected me to do is to go there and to completely take the side of the Muslim brother and say, yeah, he didn't attack him, and yeah, that guy's racist, and blah blah blah, and the governor would have made his judgment based on that. But when I said that this is what happened, and I didn't see the prisoner attack the officer, I did not see him swing at him or push him or touch him in any way, I said that, I gave that testimony. But then when I also said that officer, I know him and he's not a racist, then what that did is that made the first part of what I said believable, because that showed the governor that I did not have an agenda except to tell the truth. And as a result, that officer, the allegations of racism against that officer were wiped out, and that Muslim brother, the accusations that he had of attacking that officer, that was also put to an end. So the first lesson that I got from this was the importance of honesty, even when you are in a hostile situation, and even when it comes to even against your so-called enemy. The second one, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said in the Quran, he said, Shuhada lillah. He said, when you're standing firmly for justice, you are witnesses to Allah. And I knew that officer, he was a good officer. Now, stereotypically, he looked racist because he had very short hair and he was a white officer and he had tattoos and he whatever a racist looks like, he looked racist, but he wasn't a racist. He was a decent officer. He was a good officer, and I'd known him for 2 years. If I then went and gave testimony against him and said that he's a racist, I probably would have got away with it. But what would I have said to Allah? What would I have said to Allah? That if Allah asked me that you gave false testimony when you know this man, that would have been an act of injustice to that man. And the third lesson that I learned from this is the importance of standing up for justice and doing the thing that is right. So Allah said in that verse, stand up firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it's against your own selves or your parents or your close relatives. And the reason Allah mentioned this is because it's easy to stand up for justice for a popular cause, or where clearly there's some wrong happening, and it's easy to stand up for justice for those people. Or it's easy to stand up for justice for people in a faraway land. But what is hard is to stand up for justice against your own selves. So you have people, they'll stand up for justice for the Palestinians, and they'll stand up for justice for Muslims that are being oppressed in other parts of the world, or for black people that are being killed unjustly by the police in America, for example, which are good causes, and they will stand up and they'll go to demonstrations and protest and riot, but they won't stand up for justice inside their own homes. So there's acts of oppression that are taking place inside their own homes, where either they themselves, the men, are oppressing the women, or they're allowing family members to oppress their wives, for example, or acts of oppression are taking place within their household or within their families. But that is harder to stand up, because at that point you then have to turn and look at yourself, and do you do the thing that is right, that Allah commands you to do, and you are aware that one day you will have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you will have to explain to him the stance that you took? Or do you just do what is expected of, do you just go along with the status quo and you are afraid to do that? If you stand up for justice, then, and you stand up with integrity and honesty, then things always work out in the end. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أخي أنت حر وراء السدود، أخي أنت حر بتلك القيود، إذا كنت بالله مستعصما فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد، فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد. أخي أنت حر